Hi everyone and welcome to another recipe video. And today, because it's the first week of October, I'm making these super cute steamed pumpkin custard buns. And it's pumpkin spice custard too. Now whenever I make bread type things I usually use fresh yeast, but this time I'm using fast action yeast, also known as easy yeast or instant yeast, which you don't have to pre-activate in warm water before you use it. So it's nice and easy as per the name. Okay, let's get started. And do as I say, not as I do, you'll see why. So first you're going to need 2 egg yolks, not 4 as you're about to see. Basically, long story short is I had a really old recipe for custard buns on my own blog tashcakes.com, and what I did there was I doubled the amount of custard that I needed, and when I was reading it to recreate this one I kind of didn't see that I had doubled the recipe and I just copied it straight over for this one while I was making the pumpkin custard. So I ended up making too much, but don't worry, I am rectifying that in this recipe. So ignore the 4 here, you just need 2. And you also need 1 whole egg as well. As you saw just now, I also put away the egg whites. I like to freeze them to use them in other recipes. Now I'm just breaking all these yolks up. And yes, I did say in the original recipe that I was doubling it, I just didn't read, which is a very poor show on my part. Now we're adding 100 grams of pumpkin puree, not 200 grams, 100 grams. So ignore what you see here, yours will look a lot less. Now we're giving that a good stir as well to combine everything. Now we're adding 45 grams of caster sugar, again it will look less than this. Add a pinch of salt, just to bring out that flavour as I like to do. Now a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, an 1/8 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and an 1/8 teaspoon of ground ginger, and these are your pumpkin spices. You don't actually have to add these. If you want a more traditional Chinese flavoured recipe, then don't add these western spices, but if you like the whole pumpkin pie vibe, which I quite do feel free to add them. Excuse me. Now we're adding 20 grams of melted unsalted butter, and yep, the building works is still going on as you can hear in the background. And we're giving this a good old stir too. Now you're going to need 50 grams of custard powder. Once again, it will look much less than this because you're not adding as much as I did when I was filming this. Give this a nice good stir, and that's going to help thicken this a lot, which you need for the filling. And now finally, we're going to add 150 millilitres of full fat coconut milk. Don't use that light stuff. Definitely go for the full fat stuff. You want really creamy custard. I actually made it with light here, but it didn't quite have that oomph, and so next time I will stick with full fat. Now to cook it, we're going to steam it. So you can steam it your favourite way. The way I like to do it is to grease up an 8" /20cm cake tin, and then I pour it into the cake tin, and the oil just will help it to stop sticking. And once again, this is going to look like half the amount because you would have made half the amount that I've made while filming. But the good news is, it's going to take you less time to steam your pumpkin custard than it did for me, because obviously I had more in the pan to steam, so it took longer. And I've got my giant 30cm bamboo steamer, which I like to use, and I'll also be using this to steam the buns later. So I'm just popping that in the middle, and then I'll close the lid, and then I'm going to pop this on my wok and steam it. This you steam for 20 minutes. Again, took me double the time because I had double the amount, but you'll only need 20. Once it's steamed, here I have it. I've let it cool down until I can just about handle the pan without getting hurt, so it will still be a bit warm at this stage. And I'm scooping this into a bowl, and also creating a ruckus as I do it apparently. Now I'm just going to beat this up until it's really smooth again. And you'll see it has set, but not completely solidified, and this is exactly how you want it to be. Once you've beaten it up until smooth, you're going to portion it out into 8 bits. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover a plate with cling film. This will make it easier to peel off the pumpkin balls afterwards, you'll see what I mean. A little bit wasteful I know, but it makes life that little bit easier and creates a little bit less washing up. So I'm making 8 balls, and they are massive because I've doubled the recipe here in the video. Yours again will be smaller. Once you've made these blobs, pop them in the fridge for an hour to set, and in the meantime make the bao dough. So we have 500 grams of bao flour and 100 grams of caster sugar, 1 tablespoonful of fast action yeast, that's the instant yeast I was talking about, Now I'm adding 1 tablespoonful of vegetable shortening. That can be Trex or Crisco. I use Trex because that's easier to find in the UK. And I'm now adding 100 grams of pumpkin puree. And then finally add in 200 millilitres of warm water. And this recipe I haven't messed with. I haven't halved it or doubled it. This is just as it is, so no worries about that. This is the perfect amount for 8 big buns. Now I'm going to knead it for 15 minutes until it's really smooth and soft and springy, but remember you're not really needing much gluten because there isn't much gluten in it. By the way, plain flour works as well as bao flour, it's just bao flour is a lot whiter so you can see the colours better of whatever you add. Now I've popped this into a lightly oiled bowl. I'm going to cover it with cling film and then I'm going to leave it to rise until it's doubled in size. For me it took an hour this time because it is getting a bit colder these days. It is autumn here after all. Now I'm going to roll these balls into even neater balls. They've been in the fridge for about an hour so they have solidified properly, so now I'm making them neater. Although I'll be cursing myself in a minute for doing this too early. You'll see why. So an hour has passed and my dough is nice and poofy. So now I'm going to do the satisfying job of punching it down. And now I'm going to split it into 8 parts. I love playing with dough, it's so smooth and satisfying. So I'm breaking it up into 8 here and trying to make them as even as possible. You can weigh each piece if you want, but I couldn't be bothered. And now we're going to roll each piece into a nice smooth ball because this will make it easy to flatten out and fill in a minute. So do that to every single one. Play-Doh did happen to be one of my favourite toys as a child. Maybe that's why I like making bread so much. It's a lot like playing with Play-Doh, only you get to eat it at the end. I swear I've talked about eating Play-Doh in previous videos before. Maybe I have an obsession. And here! This is when I realised that I f***ed up and misread my own recipe and doubled the custard. That was a huge amount of custard. Anyway, I'm going to leave these dough balls to rest for 10 minutes and deal with this mess. All I did was I cut each one in half, and then I rolled all of them back into balls, and I just stored half of them to use another time. And this is actually why I doubled the original recipe in the first place. It's because I'm lazy, and if I can make one huge batch of custard to make twice, then I will. So ignore this part because you'll have made the perfect amount, whereas here I am just getting rid of the surplus. And all I did was freeze the extra that I had, so I can make pumpkin buns another day and not have to make the custard separately. Now let's get on with the rest of the plan. I'm taking one of my rested dough balls here, and I'm going to flatten it out into a disc, just like this. You can use a rolling pin, but it's not really necessary, I just use my hands. And I'm trying to make the edges a little bit thinner. Now we're going to pop a custard ball right in the centre, and now it's the perfect size. And we're going to close it up just like a dumpling. No need to be neat at this point because this steam part is going to go at the bottom. We'll give it a good pinch to make sure it won't bust out. Give it another roll, a few extra pinches just to make sure it's completely sealed shut, and another little roll. And now the fun part, we're going to shape it to look like a pumpkin. Now a blunt, unserrated knife is best. I use the back of a butter knife because you don't want little tracks and dints in it, you want a nice smooth line. So this is what I do. And you're going to want to score really deep lines. Make sure you're not cutting all the way through it so that you expose the filling, but do score it quite deeply, because as these buns, as the bread continues to proof and rise, and as they steam as well, it's going to want to inflate back out and the lines will get a little less pronounced, so score as hard as you can. Now I'm placing it on a square of baking paper. You can do this right before you steam them, but I'm doing it now. And you're going to set it aside and cover and let it rest for another 10 minutes. And we're going to do the same for all 8 balls. Interestingly, the method for creating baked pumpkin buns is to wrap string around it, and that creates the little dents, the pumpkin shape. But because these are steamed, these are a bit more delicate, so you risk damaging them when you tear the string off. So now these are all shaped up, we're going to let them rest for another 10 minutes altogether. Aren't they already so cute? I love these. And when it's time to steam them, because they would have risen a little bit, you're going to want to re-dent them a bit. So again, score really deeply, just to make sure that you'll still have that pattern after they steam. And finally, jam a sultana right in the middle of each, and that creates a little pumpkin stalk. And you can eat it too. and you'll need to do the same for all of these. This 30cm basket only fits in 4, so I have to do it in 2 batches. Get 4 done first, and for the other 4 I'm actually going to pop them in the fridge. So these ones steam for 20 minutes, the other ones put them in the fridge, that'll stop them from proofing, and then that's pretty much it. Aren't they gorgeous? We've got the super soft, fluffy, cloud-like bread around, and the super creamy, tasty pumpkin custard inside that tastes just like pumpkin pie. This is perfection, I love it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you'll join me next Wednesday for my next one. Get the full recipe on my blog tashcakes.com, and find me on Instagram as tashcakestastes. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you'd like to see more. Give this video a like if you liked it to help other people find it. Comment down below if you'd like me to make anything in particular, and I'll see you guys later. Be good, be nice, and have a good week.